Releasing the first pyro plushie from Deadites on deck. Poe, he is adorably mischievous, cute as a button, and ready to be your forever friend. Someone to talk to when you are lonely, someone to keep the monsters away at midnight, someone to hug when you've had a hard day. Welcome home, Poe. We hope you will stay. Welcome home, Poe. We hope you will stay.
Watching movies, we both get chick, and the gang, funny, strange, hysterical, or just plain bad. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror and sci-fi, comedy and more. We got it all this weekend. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror and sci-fi, comedy and more. We got it all this weekend.
Howdy, gang, and forgot to change my font again. Again, I know it only bothers me. I don't think it bothers anybody else. Um, but welcome to the prom night watch along. Might not have anybody tonight. As usual, I don't know exactly what's going on with everybody else, and I know some places have had some storms. Where is my? I don't have my ducks in a row tonight. There we go. I know a lot of places have had some storms today and, in the previous day. So some people might be without power. I did see somebody pop in and out there. I don't know if that was somebody that was just cruising around trying to find, something entertaining to watch. And they were like, yeah, this isn't entertaining. But I'm going to be eating my snack for the evening. So hopefully y'all will not mind if I do that. If anybody does join me this evening, I'm going to carry on with the watch along, whether anybody comes in or not. I hope that some people will. But I do have the link for prom night in the chat in case you don't have your own copy. Now, I am watching the Synapse Films Blu-ray of Prom Night, which I think it's pretty much the same version that's in the link. I have it queued up, and we'll go ahead and get started here in a minute or so for those of you that want to watch along tonight. But I have it queued up on my Blu-ray about 9 seconds into a Simcom production. Me and Steve a few years ago did a kind of entertaining commentary for it. And, I mentioned these commentaries that me and Steve have done in the past from time to time. So if any of you guys and gals are ever interested in listening to those, I would be glad to put them up on the site. In fact, I've been planning on doing so and just haven't gotten around to doing that. I would have liked to have had this one a little bit earlier. However, I had to work a late Friday today at work. Lost power for a few seconds, and then I had to wait for my internet to come back on. And I was on a call with somebody, which made it worse. So again, there may not be anybody at all that's in here tonight due to storms or other reasons. And I totally get that. But I'm here as always. I know I haven't done anything much all week except advertise Poe. For those of you that haven't checked out the video I did on my finished Poe plushie, be sure to check that out. I give you all the details on what the cost of the Poe plushie is going to be when he arrives on the Deadites on Deck shop at deaditesondeck.com. And hopefully I'll be back in the swing of things next week. And you know, I've been sick earlier this week, and so I opted to get some rest and not really do any streams this past week. So hopefully I'll be back to normal and everything. I'm feeling better, and hopefully I'll be able to, you know, be back in full swing, be doing things as normal on the side, on the channel. So as always, if anybody comes in here later needs a timestamp, I would be glad to give that to them. If you would like to come on here live with me, let me know, and I will make sure that you get the link to come in here live with me, barring it not being a few seconds or so before the movie is over. And like I said, I'm going to be eating my snack at least at the beginning of this, which I'm having some soup here. But I guess, you know, rather than me go on and on about stuff, we'll go ahead and get started here in a sec. But I did want to remind you of the movie roulette promotion that I have going on for however long I decide that it's, you know, a fruitful endeavor. During any watch along, and that includes during any live stream, and that includes watch alongs, if you give a $5 or more super chat, you can pick any movie of your choosing for me to watch and do a review on. I've got one coming up for a couple of movies that Middle Lake picked. We're going to be doing Jeepers Creepers, and Host was the other one that I picked to do. So that'll be for an upcoming movie roulette. The Dead Pit Boys picked a couple of films for me to do. CK picked Into the Pit, the documentary on their horror radio show. And I had a lot of fun going back and rewatching that documentary. And Uncle Bill picked Necromantic 2, which, you know, wasn't so much fun, but I was good as my word. I watched it from beginning to end. It took me a couple of days or so to watch it, but I did get on there and review it. So just wanted to remind you that promotion is going on. And also to remind you that there are other ways besides monetary that you can support the channel. You can subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed yet and you're liking the content I'm putting out. Like any of the videos and streams that you really, really enjoy. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content I got coming out. I mean, I know it's been kind of less than normal this past week, but hopefully, like I said, I'll get back into the swing of things this next week. And also share, you know, my channel with friends and family members that you think might be interested in the content I'm putting out. All of those things cost you absolutely nothing to do. And they cost whoever you tell about it and they subscribe or like or whatever. They cost them absolutely nothing at all as well. But you also support my channel. You support me. You get me up there in the YouTube algorithms. So just want to let everybody know there are many, many different ways that you can support the channel, and I appreciate them all. My goal right now is to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 915 right now. And as promised, me and Candace will be doing some cosplay if I get to 1,000 subscribers. I will be doing Cheryl from The Evil Dead, and she will be doing Mrs. Roper from Three's Company. And if we can get our husbands involved, we'll have them cosplay Chrissy and Janet for everybody. But me and Candace guaranteed will be doing the cosplay. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll do the countdown. We'll go ahead and get started with the movie. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Press play. And we're off and running. Make sure my subtitles are on. Here we go. And this was a movie, and I've said this before, that I remembered at least the beginning, this part here, for those of you that are watching along. I remember from being at a drive-in with my parents. And I remembered it for years and years and years, but I didn't know what the movie was. And it seems that, again, for those of you that are watching along, that the kids here are playing a very aggressive version of hide and seek where somebody plays the killer and they're going to find all the kids that have hidden. So this is a very, very good version of this, by the way. There have been many versions of Prom Night over the years, and they have been of varying quality. But I think the version that Synapse put out has been the best. But I heard through the grapevine that they had no intentions of putting it out on 4K, or Synapse didn't have any plans to put it out on 4K because the Blu-ray didn't sell well. And I'm like, I don't understand why the Blu-ray didn't sell well. I think this is a great slasher film. Has Jamie Lee Curtis in it too, in the prime when she was doing all of those different slasher films. And of course, it appears that Alex has left his twin sister Robin by herself, and all she wants to do is go play with these kids that are playing this version of hide and seek. Leslie Nielsen is also in this. Another reason why I can't fathom that this movie wouldn't have sold well. Because, I mean, they did, I think Synapse Films did top-notch advertising for it. They showed, there were screenshots floating around, and it looked absolutely fantastic. In fact, it still looks fantastic. Antoinette Bauer is in this, playing Mrs. Hammond. Leslie Nielsen plays Mr. Hammond. The music was by both Carl Zitcher and Paul Zsa, who were both, big names in horror movies, at least slasher movies in particular. And this is a Canadian slasher. And like I've said before, the Canadians were on fire, at least in the early 80s, with making these horror films. This one, My Bloody Valentine, even back in the 70s. Now, Bob Clark was not Canadian by birth, but he moved to Canada and he made Black Christmas with a lot of Canadian actors and actresses. And Bob Clark also made Porky's, which was not a horror film, but it was, a teen sex comedy. And he made it in Canada with Canadian actors and actresses as well. And some of the better films, horror or otherwise, to come out in the early 80s came out of Canada. And those of you that don't get to watch this while I'm actually doing this, come watch this on the replay. That's a great thing about having a YouTube channel. You can keep the stuff up there unless, a complete crisis happens or YouTube takes it down for whatever reason. Now, this kid here, he is the only actor that has been in all 4 of the Prom Night films in varying roles. He didn't play the same role. He's playing the young Nick here. And you're going to see that into his high school years, he's going to carry a lot of guilt because he gave away Robin. And he's even pushing her. All of them are pushing her and shoving her because she's different. She stutters, for one thing, and she's shy and all that. And they're terrorizing her. They're saying the killers are coming, the killers are coming. They're chasing her. And this is obviously an old building, and more than likely these kids shouldn't be in it. I always thought it was a school, but if you are listening to the dialogue, which I can't because it would get me dinged by YouTube, but if you're watching it in the comfort of your own home and you're listening to the dialogue, you will hear them say that it's a convent. Okay, so they're backing her up against the window, which is not a good idea. And unfortunately, poor Robin falls to her death. And this is why I say Nick, into his high school years, is going to carry so much guilt because not only, did he participate in an incident that caused young Robin Hammond to die, but he's going to end up dating her sister, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, when they're in high school. Now, you notice all of them swear except Nick. And Nick says, I'll never tell, but he doesn't swear. And I think that's going to come into play a little bit later in the film. And there's a little goof there. You can see the actress playing Robin breathing, which, for a kid, that's exceptionally hard to do, to pretend like you're not breathing. And we see that somebody walks over and sees Robin dead. We don't know at this point who that is. And here's Mr. Leslie Nielsen playing Robin's father. And the cops think that Robin was a victim of a sexual attack and that she resisted, and that's how she ended up dead. And this is something I've never been able to understand. And I asked Steve about this when we did the commentary. Why did they bring Robin's mother to where they're carrying her dead daughter out, covered with a sheet. I mean, you would think that they would try not to have her see that. And we hear Mr. Hammond, Leslie Nielsen's character, scream, "Bye, no," because he didn't want his wife to witness that. And of course, she's devastated. This is her young daughter. And now we're to 6 years later, which is present day in the movie world. And we see that Robin was only 10 years old. But we're going to find out later, again, due to the dialogue, that this would have been Robin's first prom. And there's Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Tuff playing Alex. And I met Michael Tuff a few years back, and I also met Jamie Lee Curtis a few years back at the same time. Well, not, I didn't meet them sitting right next to each other, but they were at the same Horror Hound convention. And both Michael Tuff and Jamie Lee Curtis were very nice. It was just due to certain circumstances that happened right before I met Jamie Lee Curtis. This poor guy dropped his posters all over the place, and it was a big distraction to Jamie Lee Curtis. So I was right after that guy, and so I think that made it a less than stellar event for me. Also due to the fact that poor Jamie Lee Curtis had been signing all day long, and it was like 10 o'clock at night or 10:30 or something like that before I ever got up there on the stage to meet her. And this, of course, was filmed in Canada, but as with a lot of Canadian films, horror in particular, they tried to, give the appearance that it was in the United States by putting, like American flags and all of that stuff strategically placed in certain areas of the film. That guy's weird. And I believe that is Robert Silverman, who has showed up in other Canadian films, including David Cronenberg's films. So now we're seeing that someone is dialing the phone, and this is Jude. This is the high school Jude. And someone is calling saying, "Jude, can you come out tonight or to play tonight? And then I'll see you at the prom." And then her mom comes in and says, "Still no date." And she says, "Getting closer though." And her mom says, "A boy?" And she says, "An obscene call, and not very obscene at that." I am thinking that the actress playing Jude's mother there is actually Eddie Benton's mother, who plays Wendy in this. That is her real mother, if I'm remembering correctly. So we're getting introduced to Seymour Crane, aka Slick, who is almost running over poor Jude on the sidewalk. And he's desperately trying to get a date for the prom. And she's like, I'm going straight to Hamilton High. And he's like, straight to Hamilton High. But he's looking like, aha, I've got a live one. And here we have the high school version of Kelly. And she's going to get a phone call too. And she gets the same voice saying, Kelly, it's been a long time tonight. It's my turn. Now, the first time I saw this, I had no idea who the killer was. I didn't figure it out. Now, some of you guys and gals might be able to. But now that I go back and I've seen it several more times, I'm like, oh, it's obvious, you know. But I don't want to go into too much detail because for those of you that want to be surprised, I don't want to give it away. And this is Drew, Kelly's boyfriend. So this is Nick's father, who is he was a cop, but I think he's higher up the chain now. I think lieutenant. And this is the high school Nick, the high school version of Nick, who is dating Kim, Jamie Lee Curtis's character. And we find out too that from the dialogue that he had dated Wendy in the past, and she's not wanting to let Nick go. And that actor playing Nick, I had to double check my information, and played by Casey Stevens, sadly died at a young age, I believe, of AIDS. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe that is correct. Oh, yeah. So he's a lieutenant. He was promoted last year. So he's talking to this psychiatrist about Leonard Murch. And they think that Leonard Murch was the guy who attacked and killed Robin Hammond 6 years ago. And supposedly, Leonard Murch has escaped from the mental hospital. You know, that's not uncommon thing in these horror films, these slasher films in particular. So not only did Leonard Murch escape, but he kidnapped a nurse and stole her car and took her with him. Well, they found the nurse, and I got a funny feeling that it didn't end well for that poor nurse. And here we're seeing Eddie Benton, who plays Wendy. And I mean, Eddie Benton here is the perfect Wendy. I mean, she is so bitchy in this. But I've seen her play nicer characters. For instance, she had a small part in Halloween 2 as Nurse Karen's friend who she had to take home after a Halloween party, and then hence she was late for her job at the hospital. I was never sure if the older woman was like her grandma or the housekeeper or what, but Wendy is just so rude to her. And I don't think I told anybody, at the beginning of this, why I'm doing this bonus watch along for prom night. Well, the reason being is that usually in May, a lot of schools will have their prom. So I thought, well, I have prom night. People can access it on YouTube and they can watch it if they don't own it. Why don't I do a watch along on it? And there's Jamie Lee Curtis again with two of her friends. So obviously she's friends with Jude. And the blonde there was not one of her childhood friends. Or not the group of friends that, caused Robin to die. And there's Lou, like the bully and the guy that Wendy's going to end up going to the prom with. And so we come along, and Wendy is trying to get Nick back and plants a kiss on him and says, "See you later, lover." And he says, "I told her it was over." And Kim's going to act like, she's really mad, but she's not. And then one of her friends says, "Nick, she's smiling. She's got a great big grin spread all over her face." Oh man, to go back to high school. It was a much simpler time then, folks, I'll tell you. At least for me, it was. So this is what remains of that poor nurse. Hey TJ, you say, "Hi Dana. So you think the girls forgot what happened because of the shock? How can you be friends with the girl whose sister you caused the death of? Plus Wendy should be kissing Kim's ass." Yeah, I guess that's horror movie logic for you, TJ, is that, they don't think about us watchers of the film as thinking too deeply on it. But you're right, how could you be friends with with the girl whose sister you caused the death of? That's a very good question to ask. I don't have that answer, but um, I don't think they forgot. I think this is just, like I said, what's called horror movie logic. Because Nick didn't forget. So I don't think that the girls, but he's the only one that seems to show a lot of guilt too, because he's dating Kim and he knows that he had a part in causing the death of her sister 6 years ago. But yeah, Wendy should be kissing Kim's ass. So here's a typical thing that happens in a lot of slasher movies, but it also happened in Jaws as well. Is that, don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. Don't tell people that there's a crazed killer running around. They did that in Halloween. Even Dr. Loomis, who I love the character of Dr. Loomis, I love Donald Pleasance. But why would you do that? Why would you not alert people? Again, horror movie logic, or slasher movie logic, I should say in this case. I tell you, this high school goes all out for their prom. Installing a disco floor for the prom, like, how much do you think that would cost even back then? If you looking back, you can see there, Wendy is, taking a gander at Kim as she is practicing her dance moves. Oh, something else I wanted to bring up, since we're still kind of at the beginning of the film. We're about 26 minutes in. There was a television version of this, which is very interesting to take a look at. And if you get a chance to, you definitely should check it out, because it makes, red herrings out of people that you wouldn't even think of being red herrings when you watch this, or at least I don't think so. I'm trying to think if there's a collection of additional scenes added for the television broadcast that are included on the Synapse Blu-ray. But I think there is a television version available on YouTube. And Steve downloaded a copy for me at one time, and I watched, and I was really intrigued by it. I think it was when it was broadcasting on NBC, maybe around 1981, 82, thereabouts. You think the ending of Halloween 2 on the old TV version was an editing mess? Well, yeah, I guess some of it was an editing mess, but something that I did like about that version is that, oh shoot, I'm just completely losing it. Yeah, the Mrs. Alvis kill and the Jimmy scenes. Jimmy, that's who I was thinking of. But in the TV version, spoiler alert, folks, is Jimmy lives, and we know that he lives. We kind of don't know what happens to him in the regular version. I mean, we can assume that he dies, but he doesn't show back up at the end. But if you watch the TV version, you see that he sits up in the back of the ambulance with his head bandaged. But I do agree with you that there were certain scenes that were edited very badly in that television edit. Now keep your eye on that mask because the killer is going to don that mask a little later. Sorry, folks, if you heard me sipping that through the straw. Steve got me Starbucks this morning, and my stomach has been kicking around a little bit lately, ever since the beginning of the week when I had to miss a couple of days of work. And so I had to stop drinking it a little earlier today, and then I'm just now finishing up. I always wondered who Mr. Hammond was talking to there, that they kind of cut him off. Oh, and there was another goof um, when the fight started between Alex and Lou. When Kim screams out, "Michael!" Instead of Alex. She screams out his real name if you're quick enough to catch it there. Again, I have to say I don't understand why this Blu-ray did not sell well with Synapse. I mean, hey TJ, you got any insight into that? Can you think of a reason why people wouldn't want to buy the Blu-ray of Prom Night? People seem to like, Prom Night 2 and stuff better than they do this original one, which I'm not totally against Prom Night 2. I like it. But if I had to say what my favorite prom night was, it would be the original one. And I have to ask, what place in the United States could this be? Because they kind of act like it's Ohio. You know what? That doesn't look like Ohio because they say something about Cleveland um, and we've got the American flag back there. So Kim's telling Nick, it's Robin's Day, which means that it's the day that Robin was killed. And this is where Kim says, she would have been a junior this year. This would have been her first prom. And Nick, like I said, is just riddled with grief and guilt. But he loves Kim. And he comes really close in this scene of telling Kim what happened. I mean, telling her fully what happened. But he just can't get it all out. He said, "I want you to know Robin's death. I remember it." And it flashes back to him shoving poor Robin and everything that happened. And he says, "I mean, I know what you're feeling." And he can't get it out before the bell rings and they've got to go back to class. I mean, he really seems to be the only one of the kids grown up that has any guilt. TJ, you say not sure because people are odd and it makes no sense what they buy and what they don't buy. Good answer, TJ. I thought the same thing myself. You've got these videos that people do, and I'm not knocking them or anything, but I see these videos of people who they must just have money to burn. They will go and buy movies that they know nothing about, they've never seen before. And on top of that, they will buy two or three copies and not like different versions, just the same damn copy. And it's like, why would you do that? So yeah, I totally get that. Makes no sense what they buy and what they don't buy. So, gang, I hate to, but I gotta take my restroom break here, as I always do, because I drink too many of these, right? Um, but I hope you guys and gals won't go away. TJ, I hope you can hang around. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. I'm down to one person. I'm hoping that one person is TJ because at least he's been talking in the chat. Not that you guys and gals have to talk in the chat, but it's more fun when there are people to engage with. I think Steve asked back when we did the commentary why there was an outside entry to the girls' change room. And I was like, I have no idea. Maybe things are different in Canada. And we see that the mirror was broken and a shard of glass is taken out. And of course, Kim is, she's suspicious of the janitor. So we see that Kim and Nick are practicing for the prom tonight, because they're going to be king and queen of the prom. Okay. I always thought this scene was funny. So he's supposed to kiss Kim because he's supposed to be Mr. Hammond. And, and the part where he said, and now the king, he says, kiss the king. And she's like, shake hands. Steve had me watching a movie earlier called Satan War. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that, but that's a crazy movie. It's supposed to be a really low budget, extreme ripoff of the Amityville Horror, and it is indeed low budget. But they have three different versions of the film, and I told Steve, I said, if we watch it again, let's not watch the 92-minute version. Goodness gracious. You would think I would have more energy. Drink that coffee drink, and I'm drinking this Mountain Dew now. So we're seeing that someone has torn each of the offending students' pictures out of the annual or yearbook and put a shard of glass in it. And this goes back to, TJ saying, were the girls in shock? Did they forget what happened? And this kind of reinforces that possibility because they act like, why would somebody do this to us? So we see that Wendy is scheming with Lou to mess up, you know, Kim's big night, basically. Okay, here's something else here. Now, like the dress looks better later on when she doesn't have that outer, I don't know, jacket or whatever it is. Um, but I always thought with that outer jacket on there, the outer piece, it looks like an old woman's dress. But when the dance scenes come up and she doesn't have that on, it looks a lot better. And we just saw that her mother was talking to her and said, my dark red lipstick is missing. Now, that is something else that's going to come into play later. Oh, I may have to go get something else to eat. I was so busy, doing things around the house before I had to go start work at 1 o'clock today. I worked from 1 to 7. Um, that I forgot to eat my lunch and didn't realize that until this evening. And I was like, well, that's not a real good thing for a diabetic to do, is it? So I think I probably just didn't eat enough today. And this is a little banter, just a little kidding between siblings here. And we see another stab of guilt here as Nick sees Robin's picture on the mantle. We go from Kim's dress to, wow, Wendy's dress. Like, Wendy wants to be seen. Of course, Steve would say that's totally gross, a woman smoking a cigarette like that. But this was back in the day, folks. See, it is indeed supposed to be Ohio. Did y'all see that front license plate there? As far as I know, there's not any areas in Ohio that look like where they were standing on I guess what you would call a bluff in Canada. It looks like Jack Daniels. I think that's what it is that he's drinking. Now here's something funny because we're getting ready to come up on the some of the dancing scenes. Um, that I watched this with um, a friend and a fellow coworker back when I was living with my parents, and I had my first library job. And I went to this friend and coworker's house quite often while we were working together. And so I wanted to show her prom night. And she grew up in this time period of disco dancing stuff. And she thought this was the most ridiculous stuff ever, especially the scenes with Kim and Nick dancing. TJ, you say Eve Plum Jam from Brady Bunch was originally going to play Kim. That is right. You are correct, TJ. But they got JLC, and that helped the budget go up because of her Halloween notoriety. Exactly. I don't know that, not to say anything bad about Eve Plum, but I don't think Eve Plum would have been a very good choice for this role. I'm glad that they got Jamie Lee Curtis, and they're not necessarily, in my opinion, because of her Halloween notoriety, but because she was just a better choice for this. So we see Jude is there with Slick. And TJ, I'm going to ask because you're in here with me or watching along with this with me. And what is it that you think that is that a joint that Slick passes to Nick kind of discreetly? Because we see later that Slick has a whole fake book of marijuana joints. So I'm thinking that's what he gave to him. He says, just a token, nothing more. He's like, yeah, Slick is a pusher. You know what? I could never imagine dancing that way, even if I could dance that way with my dad. Oh, and now Wendy and Lou are going to make their appearance at the prom, and Lou's buddies there. Only Lou would have a tuxedo like that. And actually, it's only like the top parts of tuxedo. So here coming up is the dance scene that my friend and coworker just laughed her ass off at. And like I said, she grew up during that time period of disco dancing. But yeah, she thought this was really ridiculous. And I think that Casey Stevens had to learn how to dance. I think maybe Jamie Lee Curtis may have worked with him because I think he told him he could dance and it turned out that he couldn't. And Steve even laughs at this too when we did that commentary. He said, "What kind of dancing is that?" He said, "Slapping butts and stuff." I said, "I don't know. I'm guessing it's supposed to be disco dancing." I just always thought, especially in these days and times, that Jamie Lee Curtis, her characters are just cool ass chicks. And Wendy looks thoroughly pissed off, which is always a plus. Of course, some people may think that it takes too long to get to some real, slashing and killing in that, and that might be maybe that's the problem with the movie. But you'll notice if you look closely that somebody has written the name Mary Beth, which Kelly, the girl that just entered the room there, the bathroom, um, her real name is Mary Beth Rubens. Um, and so I'm almost willing to bet that that's why they have Mary Beth written on the mirror there. And we find out that Kelly is really nervous about possibly having her first sexual experience with her boyfriend, Drew. It's like, will she or won't she? David Mucci, I think, is his name that plays Lou here. It's so funny in this scene. You can tell that, you know, Winnie would rather die than touch Lou, actually. But she just turns around, walks away, and he's still dancing, dancing the night away. And we're back to Kelly and Drew here. So we're going to really come up on the first actual on screen kills since Robin's death. Now, the nurse was killed, but we didn't see her killed. We just saw the aftermath of that and not much of the aftermath. Um, and again, that might be what the issue is that people have with this movie, that they think that it takes too long to really get to some action. But a movie that, to me, a movie that's only an hour and 32 minutes long, um, I don't think it hurts to for you to get to know the characters a little more and stuff like that before the killing starts. I mean, there's stalking and there's, really creepy shots in the film before, the killing gets into full swing. But again, like the first real kill of the movie is going to be coming up, and we're over an hour into the film. So it may very well be a deterrent for some people. So we're finding out that, she's not going to give it up for Drew, and he's angry. And so he's like, you know, he's an asshole, but he says, if you don't, I know plenty who will. So he just leaves her there to find some chick that'll sleep with him. And that's really cruel, throwing um, the corsage or the flower that she gave him, just throwing it at her. Oh, honey, he won't be back. So, like I said, we're coming up on the first real kill in the film. TJ, you say who's worse, Chris from Carrie or Wendy? You know what? I think Chris from Carrie is worse. Because there's just something about Chris Hargenson's character that, I mean, she set something up where they're going to pour pig's blood on Carrie at her prom when she's at her happiest moment. Wendy, on the other hand, is just a jealous bitch. And she doesn't really get that vengeful. So, yeah, I would have to say Chris from Carrie. But good question, though. So, Drew's found him a woman that I guess will sleep with him. Ah, and Wendy's trying to get Nick again. So, this blonde here, we don't even know who this chick is in this version, but if you watch the television version, you will find out that she's like a temp secretary. That we just really don't know who she is in this version. Okay, so you think Drew and Wendy should have hooked up? Yeah, I think they were two peas in a pod. Yeah, that would have worked. So we're seeing that Slick is indeed getting some action with Jude. But the actress playing Jude, if you watch interviews with her, they were going to, have her do a more, you know, full nude scene, and she didn't want to do that. We see another Ohio license plate there, if you look closely. Always wondered, when she just assumes that Slick was a virgin and that, um, it was the first time for both of them. I'm not so sure. I'm thinking maybe Slick's had one or two more girls. So you can always tell it's a Canadian film when they mention bluffs, when they say sorry, um, and things like that. And the sorry thing and bluffs really tips me off that it's a Canadian film. Not when I was a kid. I didn't pay any attention when I was a kid. I just thought they were, other films that came out of the United States. I didn't know any better. So we're down to probably about the last quarter of the film here. We got about 26 minutes to go. And we can see that somebody's watching as Jude and Slick are, making out there on the bluffs. So Slick wants to go back to the van. Usually it's the chick that wants to go back to the car or the van or whatever. And his excuse is, I think I need another joint. And she says, I think you do too. So they're going to go back to the van. I have not seen Hard Eyes yet, TJ. And I'm not really interested in it. Have you seen it? Maybe it's better than I thought it was going to be. No, honey, he's not going to study. He's got joints in there. A lot of joints. TJ, you said there's something in this movie that I think they reference in Hard Eyes, but won't spoil it. Yeah, I like the movie. It's a romantic comedy with a slasher killer. There's some good chases and kills. Well, maybe I need to give it a chance. I think what kind of turned me off of it was the way that the killer looked with those glowing eyes. So, do the glowing eyes show up very much, TJ? Or is that just like a one off? Or I know I shouldn't base the whole movie on just that one scene, but it just looks so ridiculous to me. But if you say there's some good chases and kills, it might be worth me checking out. So we see that Jude just got dispatched, and probably the killer wouldn't be after Slick if you know he wasn't there. He was wrong place, wrong time. And he's got a hole in his sock. And Slick is no more. And we're back to disco time. That one guy's getting down there in the middle. Oh, you think the mask in Violent Nature is ridiculous? You said the glowing eyes come into play, but I liked how they did it. The mask ain't any more ridiculous than the Violent Nature to me. Um, I don't know. I guess I could see it that way, but I didn't mind the mask in a Violent Nature, and but I'm, based on what you said about Hard Eyes, I'm going to see if maybe Steve can get a download of it if he hasn't already, and I'll check it out. Wendy, honey, I don't think you need any more mascara. Look, it's a little heavy as it is. But we see that someone has come into the bathroom and she thinks it's another girl. And, she said, "Have you got any more mascara?" And again, her eyes are dark enough. I don't think she needs any more mascara. So this is my favorite stalking scene and chasing. Um, yeah, it leads up to a pretty bloodless kill, even though the killer is obviously got an axe. But I don't feel like that the kill needs to be that graphic. I think this movie works without that. Um, and I don't want to say too much till we get to that point, but this is an extended chase scene. But as we remember, the young Wendy was the instigator in wanting them to not tell anybody. She wasn't the instigator in making Robin known, but she obviously, they'll send us to jail and all that stuff when obviously they're not going to send kids to jail. I like the stalking of this and this is a little more extended than some slasher films. Usually they have a little bit of stalking and the intended victim hiding and all that. But I like the way this is set up. I mean, there would be a lot of, I guess, hiding places typically in a high school. And we're not sure if this killer knows the high school. Do they not know the high school? Is it a male? Is it a female? We just you don't know. Well, unless of course you've seen this before. Ah, Wendy, stupid girl. Now they know where you are. So this must be auto shop. And the doors are always locked. If we've learned anything from horror movies of the past, that doors are always locked. If you're in a building, especially if you're in a building at night or after hours or whatever, then the doors are going to be locked and you can't get out. Yes, he did, TJ. Sean Clark did a location video on prom night. He showed the spots inside where Wendy ran from the killer. He most certainly did. I watched that video. I love a lot of Sean Clark's videos. Well, basically every one that I've seen. Um, guys, and gals, I'm going to walk over to turn this window unit air on because I'm getting kind of warm. And that would be a cool thing to, if Sean would be willing to do it. That would be a cool thing to put on a 4K of this. I was actually the killer from prom night for Halloween many moons ago. I was actually thinking for this Halloween, I know I'm thinking about it early. We're not even into the dog days of summer yet. But I was recently watching Slaughter High and thought about being Marty with the Joker mask and stuff on for Halloween this year. But we'll see. TJ, I wanted to say too, I appreciate you coming in here and hanging out with me. I know there's been some other people popping in and out, but at least I've got somebody to talk to in the chat. So I appreciate that. I just think these stalking scenes are really, really good. And that they build tension and all that. So we're seeing blood dripping. We know that's not from Wendy. So what or who could it be? Oh, there's a hand. Oh no, it's Kelly. Oh no. So we don't see her getting chopped up, but we hear the axe chopping into something. We hear the killer saying, now, now, now. In many ways, I think that is scarier than if we saw a big bloody chopped up mess. And I'm a gore hound at heart too, but I just don't think that this movie necessarily needed that. So they're all relieved because Leonard Murch, they got him. But they still got a killer loose, folks. And we're going to, discover that we know Leonard Murch didn't kill Robin. And we know that Leonard Murch is not killing the people with the prom either. So the janitor's drunk and he says, there's a killer loose, there's a killer loose. Of course, nobody listens to him because he's the drunk janitor. So we're down to the final 11 minutes of the film. And this is usually at the point where, all hell breaks loose, basically. So Nick and Kim are planning for their big, king and queen moment. And we discover that Lou, he doesn't care if Wendy comes back or not. He says he'll have Kim all to himself. So what Lou's planning on doing is, taking Nick's place, which could be very detrimental to his health here, as we're going to see. There's the killer. You can probably guarantee, since they've been killing, the killer's been killing the other people that accidentally killed Robin many years ago, 6 years ago, that he was planning on killing Nick. Well, Lou and his buddy have knocked out Nick successfully. How he'd be able to wear Nick's jacket, I have no idea, because Lou's a little bit burlier than Nick is. But, again, horror movie logic, or just movie logic in general. Yeah, exactly, TJ. You said hard to believe this was a video. Nasty, not much blood and gore, and very, very brief nudity. Exactly. And not really any super bad language or super crude language. I think this is probably right here is my favorite death coming up here. And keep in mind that Lou is taking Nick's place here, but the killer doesn't. And this is a very memorable kill coming up, as you guys and gals will see here. And for Lou, shouldn't have took Nick's place, buddy. And this is probably the most spectacular reveal of the kill in the film, because we've got this head on the runway there, and I guess Um, I think Morty um, is a teacher, and he's like, "Don't panic, don't panic." I always thought that was just so hilarious. Um, yes, TJ, did you know they used real popular disco songs when they filmed this, but couldn't afford rights, so did sound alike songs? And I heard from Paul Jaja during interviews, and you probably did too, that I think they may have gotten sued or came very, very close to getting sued because the songs that they created sounded too close to original songs. And, but they did what they were asked to do by the producers. So now the killer is like, now it's my turn. And Kim's just trying all she can do to protect Nick because she loves Nick. And she managed to, hit the killer in the head with the axe. And we're going to notice something. Kim's going to notice something here. She looks at the eyes and she realizes something very familiar about those eyes. So we're flashing back and forth to Robin's death um, and the killer here, who is really, not in any shape to be doing anything to anybody else. And we're going to find out that the killer didn't have any intention really of killing anybody else except the people that were responsible for Robin's death. Yeah, a good question, TJ. Where are Kim's parents while this is going on? Are they getting it on at the Bluffs? Um, the only thing I can think of is that Mrs. Hammond was very upset. So maybe he had to go take her for a walk again. Uh-huh. And we're seeing it's Alex. And Alex has literally tried to become his twin sister, Robin. You can see he's got the makeup on there. He was the one that took his mother's dark red lipstick that she was asking for earlier. He was trying his best to help Robin get her revenge for what happened. And then poor Kim um, cannot deal with the fact that she's just killed her own brother. And, as much as I enjoy prom night too, I would have liked to have seen where they could have taken it. Would Kim end up in a mental hospital? What happened to Kim? Probably the chances of Jamie Lee Curtis playing Kim and another, like a sequel to this, would be very slim. They probably would have had to get another actress. But you don't think he was trying to be Robin? It was more he used the lipstick to represent Robin being there with him to take the revenge. That I like that too, TJ. I really do. See, this is another reason why I like people to be in the chat or to be on the streams with me, especially when we're doing these watch alongs, because there are so many different interpretations of things. And I love it that me and TJ can go back and forth. And once again, TJ, since we're at the end credits now, I want to thank you for being in here with me for the duration. You might have stepped away, I don't know, but you were pretty much, as far as I was concerned, you were here for the duration. So it's been a lot of fun, watching this movie again and hanging out with you, TJ, and even if, like I said, I saw a few people, popping in and out. There's supposedly 2 people in here right now. And I appreciate it, even if you didn't feel comfortable enough to talk in the chat tonight. But I have enjoyed, like I said, watching this again. Prom Night is one of my favorite early 80s slashers. And like I said, I have fond memories of seeing this partially at the drive-in, even though I don't remember anything except the beginning scene. But that was enough, and that was enough that I carried with me until my teenage years, when I started, renting horror films in particular, other films as well, but horror films in particular, and saw this, and I was like, I've got to get it, But we have officially reached the end of this Prom Night watch along. And I want to thank everybody that hung around with me for this one. Apologies that this one was a little later than normal. I mean, sometimes I do have them at 9 o'clock. But most of the time, like on the weekend watch alongs, I have them at 7. And we've got a couple of watch alongs coming up Saturday and Sunday. We have, oops, hold on just a second here, folks. We have a couple of watch alongs, like I said, coming up. And Hell Night will be Saturday's watch along starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And Almost Famous will be the watch along for Sunday, also starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I have a new poll up that I hope people are partaking of voting in, which it looks like for Saturday, May 17th, it looks like Happy Birthday to Me is in the lead. And for Sunday, May 18th, Beetlejuice is in the lead right now. But make sure, if you want to have a say-so on what the watch-alongs are for the next weekend that I do watch-alongs, which won't be the following weekend, but will be the weekend after. And so I'm going to go ahead and skedaddle on out of here for the night. But again, thank you, everybody that turned out for this. Thank you, TJ, for hanging out in the chat with me tonight. And for those of you that will watch this on the replay, I thank you as well. And with all of that being said, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday night, folks. And let's enjoy our weekend. And that's it for me. I'll see everybody next time.